You've tried time blocking your calendar. You've tried turning off notifications using focus apps, even that standing desk that was supposed to change everything. But when the pressure builds, when three urgent things hit at once, when your mind starts racing through everything undone, you still fragment, you still scatter your attention across a dozen half-finished priorities, while the one thing that actually matters stays untouched. A Ronin swordsman discovered why this happens, and how to cut through it, over 400 years ago. I'll explain how his method cuts through distraction, in a way no productivity hack can touch. But before we get to the warrior, meet David. His story might sound familiar. David was 48, when he realized he'd spent the last decade being busy without ever being focused. He ran a successful consulting firm, 40 employees, good revenue, the kind of business that looked impressive on paper, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was constantly reacting, constantly scattered, never fully present for anything that mattered. He'd start his morning with a clear priority, the big client proposal that could transform the business, then get pulled into email, then a team crisis, then vendor negotiations. Then it's 4 p.m. and he hasn't touched the work that counts. Every night, the same thought, tomorrow I'll focus. Every day, the same pattern. His wife noticed it at dinner, the way his eyes would drift mid-conversation, his mind clearly somewhere else. Cataloging tasks, replaying meetings, already planning tomorrow's fires. His business partner noticed it in strategy sessions. David would champion an idea, then abandon it halfway through execution when something shinier appeared. Good instincts, no follow-through. The business was plateauing not from lack of opportunity but from lack of sustained attention on anything strategic. What bothered David most was the exhaustion. He worked 12-hour days but finished them feeling scattered rather than accomplished, busy but not effective, present but not focused. He'd tried every productivity system, every app, every framework. They'd work for a week, maybe two, then life would get chaotic and he'd revert to reactive mode. Attention pulled in 12 directions, never fully committed to any single thing. Until he discovered what Miyamoto Musashi understood about the nature of focus itself. In 1612, Miyamoto Musashi stood on the shore of Ganryu Island, deliberately late for the most important duel of his life. His opponent, Sasaki Kojiro, was already there, Japan's most feared swordsman, known for a blade technique so fast it was called the swallow's reversal. Spectators lined the beach. The shogun's representatives watched from a distance. Kojiro had been waiting for an hour, pacing, his legendary sword drawn, his focus fracturing with each passing minute. Musashi arrived in a fishing boat, moving slowly, unhurried. He'd carved a wooden sword from an oar during the crossing, while Kojiro's attention scattered across a dozen concerns. Why is he late? Is this disrespect? Where is he? What's his strategy? Musashi's mind held one thing only: the opponent, the distance, the single strike that would matter. When he stepped onto the beach, Kojiro attacked immediately, his famous technique executed with perfect form. Musashi's wooden sword caught him across the temple. One strike. The duel was over. What made Musashi undefeated across more than 60 duels wasn't superior technique. Many of his opponents had spent more years training, had studied under more prestigious schools, had mastered more elaborate forms. What made Musashi undefeated was something the Japanese call Mushin, which translates roughly as no mind, but means something far more precise. Not empty mind, not blank mind, mind without obstruction, mind that moves to its target without hesitation, without internal commentary, without dividing itself across multiple concerns. The mind of water that flows around obstacles rather than fighting them. The mind of a blade that cuts one thing, completely, before turning to the next. Musashi had learned this principle not through meditation but through survival. He fought his first duel at age 13, killing a trained samurai with a wooden training sword. There was no time in that moment for doubt, for overthinking, for wondering if he was ready or if his technique was perfect. There was only the opponent and the action required. Life or death clarified focus instantly. What Musashi discovered over decades of duels was that this state of unified attention wasn't something reserved for life-threatening moments. It was a skill. It could be cultivated, but it required understanding what actually fractures focus in the first place. Most warriors, Musashi observed, entered battle with divided minds. They thought about their reputation. They worried about their technique being judged. They replayed previous victories or defeats. They anticipated future consequences. They fought not just the opponent in front of them, but the ghost of every other concern in their life. This divided attention created hesitation, microscopic but fatal. The blade moved a fraction slower because the mind questioned. The body tensed because the mind worried. Focus scattered because the warrior treated every concern as equally urgent. Musashi's answer was what he called Haijō Shin, the constant settled spirit, not calm in the sense of relaxation, settled in the sense of water finding its level, of attention resting completely on what is actually present. He described it in the Book of Five Rings. In strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distanced view of close things. This wasn't about perspective, it was about refusing to let the mind fragment across time. The distant concern stays distant until it becomes present. The present concern receives total attention, until it is resolved. One thing, completely, then the next. After Ganryu Island, Musashi could have built a school, taken students, secured a comfortable position as a sword instructor to a wealthy clan. Instead, he walked away from dueling entirely. He'd proven what needed proving. For the next 16 years, from age 30 to 46, Musashi became what the Japanese called a mushoshugyo, a warrior on pilgrimage. He wandered from province to province with no home, no master, no school affiliation. Most samurai found this existence unbearable. Without the structure of a clan, without daily orders and defined purpose, they felt unmoored, their attention scattering across uncertainty. Musashi used the wandering years differently. He stripped away every distraction that had nothing to do with mastery. No reputation management, no social obligations, just the practice itself. He'd arrive in a town, observe the local sword schools, sometimes challenge their masters to test his understanding. But increasingly, he wasn't testing his technique. He was testing his mind's ability to remain unified under any condition, exhausted from walking 20 miles, hungry because he hadn't eaten in 2 days, sick with fever, cold and soaked from rain. Could he maintain Mushin regardless of circumstance? Could his focus stay unbroken when every external condition pulled toward distraction? In one town, he noticed a master carpenter working on a temple gate. The man was 60, maybe older, and he moved with the same quality Musashi recognized in undefeated warriors: total presence. When he measured completely. When he cut completely. No wasted motion, no divided attention. No part of his mind anticipating the next task while his hands performed the current one. Musashi spent 3 days watching him work. Later he would write, "The carpenter who thinks about the beam he will cut tomorrow while cutting the beam of today will build a temple that collapses." Focus fractures the moment you split your attention across time. This is when Musashi began training, not just his sword technique, but his capacity for undivided attention in every action. When he walked completely. His mind not racing ahead to his destination but present to each step. When he ate completely. When he painted, which he did increasingly during these years, he painted completely, not as a break from sword training, as sword training, because he understood that focus wasn't domain specific. The mind that fragments while painting will fragment while fighting. The mind that stays unified while carving wood will stay unified when facing a blade. By the time he emerged from his wandering years at age 46, Musashi's skill hadn't diminished despite years without formal dueling. Because he'd solved the problem beneath the problem. Technical mastery only matters if your mind can access it under pressure. And the mind can only access mastery when attention is unified. Every warrior who lost to Musashi had trained longer, but they hadn't trained their focus. They'd trained their hands while their minds remained fractured. Musashi later described his approach using the principle of Zanshin, remaining mind. But it's better understood as continuation of focus through completion. The strike doesn't end when the blade moves. It ends when the opponent falls and the threat is resolved. Until then, attention stays unified. This wasn't about physical endurance. It was about mental discipline. The capacity to hold your focus on one thing, completely, without letting part of your attention drift to what comes next or replay what just happened. One target, full commitment. In his final years, living in a cave, Musashi wrote the Dokodo, 21 Precepts for Walking Alone. Number 17. Do not let yourself be saddened by separation. This wasn't about emotions. It was about attention. When you cling to what's finished, when you replay the past or anticipate the future while acting in the present, you fragment. The warrior who worries about the duel tomorrow while fighting the duel today loses both. The complete focus Musashi embodied came from releasing what's done, refusing to anticipate what's coming, and meeting what's present with undivided attention. One cut, one target, one moment of total commitment before moving to the next. David didn't need to fight duels. He needed to stop fighting 12 battles simultaneously while winning none. He applied Musashi's principle not to swordsmanship but to the structure of his day. He started with one change. Morning identification. Before email, before meetings, before the day's chaos began. He spent 10 minutes identifying the single target. Not the most urgent thing, not the loudest thing, the thing that if completed today would actually move his business forward. The client proposal, the strategic hire, the system redesign. One thing. The first day he chose the proposal he'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. 3 hours of focused work, door closed, phone off, email unopened. His team knew not to interrupt unless the building was on fire. And here's what surprised him. It wasn't the interrupted time that changed everything. It was the mental shift. When email pinged in his mind, when he thought of the vendor call he needed to make. Instead of fragmenting his attention across both, he practiced what he started calling blade focus. This moment, this paragraph, this idea, everything else stays sheathed until this cut is complete. The first week felt uncomfortable. His instinct was to multitask, to keep 12 plates spinning, to stay responsive to everything. Blade focus felt almost reckless, like ignoring urgent things, but he noticed something. The urgent things didn't explode. His team handled them, or they waited, or they resolved themselves. Meanwhile, the proposal he'd been avoiding for 2 weeks was finished in 3 days. Finished completely. Not half done. Not good enough for now. Done. And the moment it was done, he released it entirely, and moved to the next target. 3 months later, David's business partner pulled him aside after a board meeting. What changed? The answer wasn't complicated. David had stopped being busy and started being focused. The company had closed 2 major contracts, both from proposals David had finally completed. They'd restructured their service model, a strategic shift David had been working on for 18 months, that took 2 weeks of focused attention to actually implement. Revenue was up, but more importantly the quality of work had shifted. Clients noticed it. The team noticed it. David's attention in meetings was different. Present. Settled. Like he was actually there instead of mentally cataloging the next 12 things. His wife noticed it too. Dinner conversations where his eyes stayed on her instead of drifting to mental task lists. Weekends where he was fully present instead of half working, half present. The exhaustion had lifted, not because he was working less, he was working the same hours, but because he was no longer scattering his energy across fractured attention. One thing at a time, completely. Then the next. It sounded simple. It was. But simple and easy are not the same thing. What Musashi understood, what David learned, is that focus isn't about eliminating distraction. It's about training the mind to meet what's present with undivided attention, then releasing it completely when it's finished. The warrior doesn't fight every enemy simultaneously. He faces one opponent, resolves that conflict, then turns to the next. The blade doesn't cut 12 targets at once. It cuts one, completely, then moves. Most people treat their attention like a resource to be divided, as if spreading focus across multiple priorities makes them more efficient. It doesn't. It makes them busy without being effective, present without being focused, working hard while accomplishing little that matters. The distraction isn't your phone. It's not your email. It's not your environment. It's the way your mind divides itself across time, trying to hold the past, the future and the present simultaneously. That fragmentation is what scatters you. Musashi's teaching isn't about productivity systems or time management. It's about something deeper. The cultivation of a mind that can commit completely to what's present. Hold that focus through completion, then release it entirely and move forward. Mushin, Heijoshin, Zanshin. Different words for the same truth. Focus is not a state you achieve once. It's a practice you return to moment by moment, cut by cut, choosing again and again to meet what's present with your whole attention instead of your divided mind. The project you've been avoiding, the conversation you need to have, the decision you've been delaying. You know, what you're missing isn't clarity, it's the trained capacity to hold your attention on that one thing long enough to complete it, without fragmenting across every other concern that feels urgent. That's the work. Not better systems, not more discipline. Training your mind to function like Musashi's blade. One target. Complete. If you found insight in this video, please subscribe for more videos to help you along your path. And a question to carry with you. What one thing, if you gave it your complete attention today, would actually move your life forward? Thank you for watching. See you next time. And as always, remember to stay in tune with your own mind frequency.